Welcome back to the Air Crown Crypto channel as we get ready for a very yummy Bitcoin analysis, as there is plenty to talk about today with the short-term timeframes and what that means for a resolution over the next 2 weeks to come. With that in mind, we could be looking at as much of a target up to $43,000 to $44,000 nice and healthily, or if the downside displeasures are taken in this current route, there is a nice little sweep of the lows very much in line. So with that in mind, we're going to be talking about validations, invalidations for these sorts of sets up right here, and also maybe a little bit of traditional market analysis as well. And then perhaps later today, I will be recording a video on some of the, some of the more interesting coins here and there, or assets, whatever the fuck you want to call them in this market. As always, or not as always, but tonight I'm going to be going on with my girlfriend a nice little trip to Dubai. Hopefully we don't get shot down by whatever missiles might be flying our way. But the good news is I tested negative for the old C virus right there. All right, sweet. So I think we should get into it right now. With that in mind, I want to wish you the best and the happiest, a nice and happy and healthy start to this nice Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, mom, or girls, or whatever you might be identifying as today. Anyways, what do we got going on over here on the Crown Trading application? Of course, it can be found at app.crowntrading.net. There is also a link in the description below, and it is also 100% free. We do see several things that are of interest right here. Most importantly, the global open interest chart, which has really been keeping us safe and more or less suggesting when to be cautious and when to be a little bit more, I guess, less cautious in this case. And essentially, with this current low that Bitcoin has put in at about the $34,000 to $35,000 region, we do see that open interest once again, well, increasing after the great deleveraging that we've seen over the past 2.5 months here. Why is this important? Why is this relevant? Well, realistically, the data has been pretty damn conclusive over the last year to year and a half. Anytime that we've seen this get over, especially about 13.5 billion, that is, it has led to 25% down corrections or more. Of course, the summer one being a greater indication of that, about 50% down from the highs. My point over here is that there's a very nuanced interpretation of this, which can make me essentially bearish, looking for a nice move down to about $29,000 to $30,000 base for Bitcoin. And that would be this: if we see the global open interest specifically get above 13, maybe 13.5 billion, that is, and then Bitcoin confirms a lower high, specifically on a daily time frame or higher, or especially higher, then yes, I would be looking for the next move to happen. Until then, I do think that this rally probably has a little bit more legs. I think that there are a few more things pointed towards an upside continuation. But again, what is the most important thing here? Validations of these levels. That's what actually makes these things sort of tangible. And that's really where I want to differentiate the content on this channel compared to perhaps other channels that you might be watching out there. Anyways, with that in mind, I do want to check out the funny rates over here. We can see that it's still actually negative, not super negative that would cause any major concern, but we have seen it consistently negative for about 2 weeks now, where it has been, a decently negative number to the point where, it starts to add up over time, especially with Bitcoin. It's bouncing up, 3, 4, 5,000 bucks here from the lows. So with that in mind, bears are essentially, or shorts are essentially paying for their positions. And well, after a 50% downside move from the current highs, that could be a nice little painful point for a bit of a short covering rally. On top of that, we do see over here in the indicators tab, of course, fear and greed index right here is still within the very fearful zone. It's technically not extreme fear. That would be below 25. We're currently at a 26, but close enough is close enough. More importantly, we've seen these reads consistent for the past 2 months now. Very similar to what we saw over the summer, where it was about 2.5 to 3 months of these extremely fearful reads, and then nice rally to new all-time highs. So with that in mind, I should also cover up the nipple over here as well. You can see that we've actually had a bit of a divergence in this case, where we made lower lows in this compared to the summer lows over here. And right now, Bitcoin does have higher lows on price action, just by a fraction of a ball sack hair. But similar to the lower highs that we saw over here from the 65,000 prior all-time highs in the summer versus our current all-time highs from about November at $69,000, there was actually a bearish divergence in that case. So I'm actually curious to see if this one does work out in that direction. I haven't really been tracking this data for too long myself, so this one's a little bit more on the experimental side for me, but interesting, just something to kind of follow up on from here and going onwards and forwards. All right, so let's start off on Bitcoin today. I actually want to start off on a bit of a different metric. We don't typically look at this indicator, at least not during the weekdays, but over the weekends, a little bit more, a little bit more interested in this, and that'd be the Gaussian channel. And what was interesting about this is that, and what we pointed out, I believe it was 2 weekends ago, that we had corrected all the way down to the bottom side of it after breaking the median band band right here. That is typically your target upon breaking one of the ranges of these. And seeing as it is kind of holding on to the bottom side of this range thus far, it does imply that we could very easily see a move back around the median of the range, which could be, as little as about $42,000 to $43,000 and as much as about $46,000 to $47,000, depending upon, general market conditions, obviously. Now, this is going to be mediated, of course, with shorter term time frame validations and invalidations in a bit here. But before we get into that, actually, no, let's get into that right now. Let's not pussyfoot around on this bitch, and let's go back down into here into the short term time frame. It's actually the same levels that we've been speaking about for, I think, about 2 weeks now. Yeah, about 2 weeks actually, since Bitcoin started to create a bit of structure right here. So let me go to the chart that we've been working off of. Same damn lines, essentially. It's the same damn lines. And what do we have? $39,000 on a full hour closure would essentially result in a validation of upside continuation with targets up somewhere around the 200 simple, and also a technical target based off of the ascending triangle formation of the short-term timeframes right here. Now, this is specifically just this little section right there. I have seen people draw on this also as a rising wedge. I'm not so sure if I'd agree with that. I'm not a big fan of wedges to begin with. I think that they're mostly bullshit, to be quite honest with you. But, if it's not obvious, it's not obvious. So I guess if you're looking at it like this, could it potentially be a rising wedge? Yeah, and those do have a higher probability of breaking out to the downside than the upside. But more importantly, what would be the validation for that condition? Well, specifically, coming back down and, taking out the bottom line of this trend line right here would be your technical confirmation of that. My confirmation of it, because I absolutely hate these formations. I think that they have a terrible hit rate in general, would be below the last higher low on your shorter term timeframes, which is just around $37,000. So below there on even a 4 hour closure, maybe even a 2 hour closure as well. I do look for Bitcoin to come back down somewhere all the way down to about 35, give or take, a few $100 from that number. And then I want to come back to things after that. I would not make any further calls from there. Obviously things would not look, great if they reject from here, but being that I'm going to be on a plane for a good amount of the next 24 hours, I really don't want to get too ahead of myself right here, because a lot of things can change, obviously. Anyways, until that happens, it's basically the same ranges on the short-term timeframes that we've been speaking about before. Here's if there's any obvious signals going on right here. We do we have some bearish divergence? Actually, technically, yes, we have a very slight amount right here. Maybe it's going to be better seen on a 2 hour. I'm sure that we will have it on a 2 hour. Yes, indeed, we do have it on a 2 hour. But of course, a 2 hour is not really going to result in the move that I think many people are looking for right here. So again, it always comes back down to the same more tangible regions. 39 to the upside on a 4 hour closure, good. Looking for moves into the shallow $40,000 territory. And then below about 37, if you want to be a little more aggressive, maybe 37,300 on at minimum a 4 hour closure. Maybe could use a 2 hour in this case as well. I guess it's okay below about 37,200 in this case. Then I would be looking for another retracement back down to about the $35,000 region, give or take, a few $100 from that number. Anyways, with that in mind, I do think it's also important to present this signal over here as well, in the sense that the daily on this is like my Trollinger band plus just simplistic chart, although it does seem to get a lot of things right in this case. We do see a bit of a rejection currently at the 20 simple moving average. That is that white moving average right here after the bounce from the bottom side of the Trollinger band. This is an inflection point. Now we do see that it is accompanied by upside momentum on the daily MACD, which will be continuing with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above about 36,750. But realistically, this is a less streamlined way, a little bit more of a streamlined way of kind of looking at what we were just looking at before. Look, if you take out yesterday's high, if you start to close above the 20 simple, which guess where it is, about $39,000 even, very, 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 very likely to get a shot somewhere around 42, maybe even as much as $44,000 quite easily, somewhere around the 55 in this case, which is currently trading just below or just above $43,500. So that'll be the next move that I'm looking for upon validation. I imagine that is also in line with one of our major Fibonacci retracements here as well. And let's just double check on this one. And what do you know? It's right here at the 382. If you could actually see the 382 or sorry, actually, no, it's not. It's more around the 0.5. Now, if we were to take this retracement just on this current move, not from the actual range lows, we had a good conversation about this yesterday in the Discord, but instead from our current lows, then yes, it'd be exactly at the 43,650-ish region. So it depends what you're looking for on the macro scale here. If you're looking at the macro range, obviously you take the macro range lows. If you're just looking at the current trend on the daily, then you take the current lows for the daily. Both are going to be valid in their own separate ways, but I'm looking at macro structure in this case, which is, and the reason why I'm looking at macro structure right now with the lows being pulled from about just below $30,000 is because I want to know where the 0.5 and the 618 Fibonacci retracements are, specifically because that is where I do expect if Bitcoin is going to have a macro reversal, that's where I'd be expecting your next lower high, or not your next lower high, but the lower high, because we already do have a lower low for the first time on the weekly, and that does essentially put the weekly trend in limbo. And if we do get a lower high, then that would be a weekly reversal. And the reason why that is relevant is because a weekly reversal has correlated to the macro direction for Bitcoin pretty much perfectly since the dawn of time. At some point, it's going to move up to a higher term time frame, I'm sure, but for right now, still have to kind of go with that until proven otherwise. Okay, cool. Maybe we get into this one next over here, and then I'll get into some of the new data that I actually want to start off this video with. But you know what? You never know where life might take you. Anyways, daily over here, what do we see? We do see daily stochastic momentum still to the upside as long as Bitcoin's above 36,700. You will notice that that number is, rather similar to what we see as far as a downside resolution for the short-term timeframes. I do think that that would be front-runnable with the short-term timeframes, to be fair. Over here on the 2-day, we still see that momentum is to the upside. This one just closed last night as well, showing upside momentum above about $35,000. That is good. And 5-day is still, in a good position here. Not closing anytime soon. Still has another 2 days left to go until closure. But as long as Bitcoin's above about 34,500, I do look at that as essentially a major basing region. So the question to me right now is that does Bitcoin continue on from where it is right now, or does it come back down first, somewhere around about 35? And then try for another low right there, and then try to pop back around. Don't really have any strong analysis on that right now, or sorry, strong biases on that right now. In the short term, Bitcoin looks like it actually does want to turn down right here for the interim, but I'm not really looking at this as anything more than a short-term corrective move, to be fair, especially with volatility heading down below the moving average and full hour jewel showing downside. But when you see volatility also curtailing like that, waning in its, I guess I wouldn't say it's momentum, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it's turning down, it's contracting. I look at that as corrective signal, not a reversal signal. So with that in mind, I think that does that. We didn't speak about the short-term time frame stochastic momentum, and where would that be over here? Come on, load it, baby. 38,750 would turn it back up. So you can see that it's actually hard down right now. And by hourly showing what? Is showing nosediving below about 38,750, and hourly is also going to be doing what? It's going to be loading. It's also coming down hard below about 38,500 or so. So you do see a lot of things kind of pivoted around the upper $38,000 region. Again, $39,000 I think is just an easier way to kind of stream like that as an upside resolution point with targets up. First target would be about $41,000, very likely a short-term pullback right there, and then very likely continuation somewhere around about 43 to 44. That's the next major region. Because if Bitcoin were to put in a lower high right there, alongside, of course, the global open interest getting above one of those critical numbers, that being about 13 to 13.5 billion, that would be a really nasty sign for Bitcoin specifically. Anyways, and by extension, the rest of the market. Anyways, let's go in over here, and I want to talk about the last thing perhaps of this video. Maybe we just hit traditional markets really quickly, but that would be the monthly accumulation distribution indicator. We saw something that is actually rather profound and important happen as soon as we got yesterday's open for February, of course, and that was this. What I mean to say is that is the slope of the accumulation distribution indicator has drastically reduced from the downside, which is a good initial signal. Is this an actionable signal in and of itself, meaning that this means immediately Bitcoin goes to the moon and beyond it? Fuck no, it does not. It does not. But obviously you need to lessen your slope first after an extremely aggressive slope like this before having a chance to actually, get an upward slope. If and when this does get an upside slope, at some point it will, sooner better than later, is obviously going to be, good for the BULAs. That's at the point where I'm going to start to get more macro bullish. And still, I wouldn't look for Bitcoin to, retest its highs anytime soon. I mean, anytime that we have seen a slope change in, especially the red zone, coming off the lows, it has taken, a minimum like 4 months for Bitcoin to retest its highs, and typically takes, years. To be fair, from the few iterations that we do have, of which we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. The shortest one was the March 2020 flu dump one, which took still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 7 months to actually test around the prior time high. So fair enough, actually not 4 months, more like 6 or so, at least historically speaking. So with that in mind, I look at this as a good initial signal, and that, it's potential that Bitcoin actually very, very well could put in a macro low at $30,000. But we have to work on the, off of this as new data comes in. Until then, the long-term macro view is still very much the same for myself. Bitcoin above, $29,000 to $30,000. That is obviously your macro range lows right now. Macro range highs for $60,000. As long as you're also in between there, it's just, one macro consolidation. It's a fucking humongous consolidation, like a, $40,000 range almost, from peak to trough. But that is the nature of dealing with humongous numbers on the right-hand scale over here. That is to say that I'm essentially not looking for what I consider the worst case scenario here, which would be somewhere down around the green, or you're not even gonna find it right there, but somewhere down around the green 55 exponential average, which is between about 23,500 and probably rises up over the next few months to $25,000 until Bitcoin essentially takes out the macro cycle range lows, which would initiate the next, 15 to 20% dump party, right? And probably, well, we won't get to that right now, but I do think that it is worth repeating. Of course, over here on the monthly MACD chart, we saw it actually officially cross to the downside coming into February here for the first time, basically since January of 2020. What happened after January 2020? 2 months later, 50% moved from about 10,000 to 5,000 or 4,000-ish region. Time before that was, of course, your June 2018 highs right here, and time before that was, of course, your August 2014 highs right here. All of these essentially bull traps along the white 20 simple, and we're getting the same thing in this case as well. We're bouncing off the 20 simple, and in the past, these have taken 3-4 months for them to kind of bounce and oscillate around, and then dooms drop down to your 55. So the longer that Bitcoin hangs sideways here, the better. I do think that there's a little bit of hopium, but realistically, as long as Bitcoin's below $50,000, I don't think that there's any like reasonable hopium to be speaking about. And right now with Bitcoin actually even struggling around the 21, it's like not, that's not like a sign of strength, for example, at least in the short term. It could very easily be something like this, right? Where you play at the downside move first, pop back up, sudden, a higher time frame, higher low right there, and then do some busting action to the upside once everyone gets like super bearish once again. And also monthly stochastic momentum is, well, it's not bullish, you might say. Not fucking bullish right there, as you can see, getting its first twist to the downside since, realistically, from like a similar posturing since February 2018. And of course, that was, another bull trap over here on the macro scale. What I do want to present as well is a little bit of more, I guess it wouldn't be short-term time frame hopium, but it would be short-term in comparison to a monthly chart. That would be the 5-day chart right here. Again, coming off of the 5-day Gaussian channel bottom, you're typically going to get a bounce within this region, to be fair, and at least reconnected with one of your shallower EMAs, which would be basically that 41,500 number. But going back on over here, we've only really seen the 5-day stochastic momentum come to this level a few times in the past, 4 times to be exact. And well, you can just quickly see where they are on this chart right here with these vertical green lines. Three of the 4 past iterations have been macro cycle lows, that being December 2018 at 3,100, that being January 2015 at like 200 or so, and October 2011 as well at about $2.50. Fucking insane. And one of them being a nice bull trap right here. But even that's a nice bull trap did produce a pretty significant move. I don't expect any move that's going to be like this similar. 70% move. That's quite a fair bit. But still was a nice move into another lower high. No trend reversals right there. And then yes, the inevitable dooms drop did happen. So I do think that aligns a little bit more with the higher term timeframes. Maybe they grind at the lows one more time. Definitely possible. However, I am generally looking for Bitcoin to probably rally out of this region. And then the real question is, do we get in a lower high below about $50,000 on a higher term time frame? If that happens, you're going to see me become pretty damn bearish. If we don't, then I guess hopium, maybe brings this one back up around the end of this, Q3, Q4 of this year, something like that. Anyways, okay, so I think we just beat that horse to death. Do we want to go over traditional markets really quickly right now? I think yes, actually, because I am seeing some really interesting things in traditional markets, and perhaps this could be relevant to the people watching out there. So, Jesus Christ, first and foremost, we've hit our first target on what's it called, NASDAQ over here. The reason why I'm watching NASDAQ specifically is because, the tech sector does trade very, very well with Bitcoin. I do think that this run very likely continues a little bit more, somewhere maybe even as much as about 15,500. Same thing on this chart as we spoke about on Bitcoin, however, in the sense that, you're getting your first weekly lower low. It's time to be on lower high watch. So anywhere between about 15,150, kind of where you're at right now, and about 15,500. is where I'd be kind of expecting something like that if it is going to indeed be the macro reversal that I think a lot of people are looking for. But here's where I'm going to start to diverge from a lot of other people. I was looking at this prior to, I guess, the monthly closure, or I guess it's like this last week of price action as, okay, this might very well be it. This might be the fucking meltdown that a lot of people are looking for. But that's also, that's starting to make me think that this is just by that terminology that a lot of people are looking for. It seems like everyone's looking for it right now, just a little bit too obvious. And we're actually not really seeing the meltdown behavior that you would be expecting in a region like this. In fact, this is a really staunch response, not necessarily from NASDAQ, but especially from SPY futures. You didn't even print a lower low right there, which is incredibly insane. And I'm actually, like, dare I say, bullish on this, and probably gonna I'm gonna say something really fucking crazy right now. I would not be surprised at all whatsoever if this thing busts on through and makes new all-time highs, maybe even this month, probably March. I also think that the Fed I think that this tightening talk nothing's going to come to fruition of it. It's seen, the more and more that I look into it, and the more that I reference other very trusted opinions, especially on stuff that I'm not so up to date on or don't follow as much. It seems that the bond market is actually already kind of pricing in, or not pricing in, but doing the tightening for the Fed, and they're going to realize that they don't actually have to tighten. They already have a weak economy, and it's going to be like, all right, let's just print some more. And then maybe we have like a major crash later on, but I'm not bearish on this. Dow Jones, industrials, not bearish on this either. I'll be bearish below about 33,800, very fucking bearish, just like SPY under about 4,300, very fucking bearish. NASDAQ below about 44,400, very fucking bearish. But I'm going to make a pretty ridiculous call right now and say that I don't think that we've actually seen the highs just yet. I do think that this is going higher. Look at the quarterly. Look at the quarterly. Look at the quarterly. These are backfills and up. It's a fucking ridiculous chart, but I think it can get a little bit more ridiculous before, a humongous, nasty downside move. Anyways, we're 22 minutes in this video, a little bit too long than what it should probably be. But obviously if traditional markets, might have another leg up, then I'd probably be looking for Bitcoin to do, I guess, at least trade back into the 50,000s, maybe $60,000 territory, maybe make new ultimates as well at some point. But Bitcoin probably going to be a bit of a laggard in that equation. We should also just maybe briefly go over the short-term timeframes. Again, I was looking at very high-term timeframes right there. That is obviously not going to be the same thing as like a 4-hour in this case. Probably pulls back, a short-term here, to be fair. But the weekly, I'm not bearish on that, man. Not bearish on that. I do think that this one trades higher, probably 15,500 or so. That's to the point where I'd be a little bit on edge, maybe if we do see some weakness in that region. Until then, Bitcoin looks like it probably wants to confirm this is a little bit of a local high. How would you actually confirm a local high on the hourly right here? I would say an hourly closure below 38,140, and then very likely tries for a higher low somewhere around your trendline support. Also your 200 simple right here as well, which is rising up rather rapidly in the mid $37,000 territory. And of course that has implications for, your medium term timeframes, with confirming that as a bit of a rising wedge, which does have technical targets further to the downside. In this case, I do think what's more likely is that Bitcoin very likely trades higher into the $40,000 specifically before Bitcoin does break below 34,500. If it's going to even do that at all, I would only invalidate that with a daily closure below, I think it was like 36.5 or 37. No, I would not invalidate with that. I would invalidate it below 34.5, this level right here, a little bit over 34,500 bucks. Until then, to me, it's either bust on through here, come down, maybe do something like this. I mean, that's kind of the same move, or break through, do something like that. That'd be a very Bitcoin-esque move right there as well. Just fuck everyone, right? Anyways, I'm gonna be signing off now. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for all the well wishes on this nice little trip. I appreciate that. Hopefully not going to need them, but man, you never know, especially with all the action going on in that portion of the world. With that said, wishing you well, take care, and see you hopefully soon.